It is Tuesday, July 9th, 2019, and this is the Pro and the Con Show, and I am your host, Michael James Ott. Welcome to the show. Actually, going live a little bit early today. Got some stuff going on a little bit later, so decided to launch early. Apologize to anybody who appreciates watching the show live, although it is live. Even the recorded versions are live. There is no editing or anything, no teleprompters or anything like that. This is just me talking to you. So, yeah, the intent of the show is to improve the dialogue here, to help us come together with some understanding between the different perspectives on the issues. And actually, I have a kind of a fun thing to do rather than go through the headlines, and a lot of them have to do again with Congress and the Democrats still chasing various documents from Mr. Trump or his various organizations that he is holding on to and preventing them from seeing. Rather than talk about that, my lovely wife gave me a link to an article that was in Psychology Today. And I thought it was quite interesting because the article basically says, whether you like Mr. Trump or not, the people that do like him, they have some thoughts here from various psychologists about what some of the attributes are, either of the people or of Mr. Trump, that cause some number of people, and it's roughly 40% of the country, to think highly of Mr. Trump. So whether or not you are one of those people, or you're one of the roughly 60% that doesn't think very highly of him, I thought it would be very interesting to kind of cover the psychological differences, and wherever you are, be interested to see what these fellows, these psychologists are saying. So it's interesting. So he ended up, I think there's 13 different aspects, and I'm just going to go through them. Okay, so we got another 15 minutes roughly. So we'll go through them probably fairly quickly on most of them. So the number one thing that Trump supporters are basically embracing is that practicality is more important than morality. So, for some people, being wealthy, it's simply, Mr. Trump gave him a big tax cut, and that's good enough. They want to be more wealthy. Okay, they're wealthy, they want to be more wealthy. Others, like some of the blue-collar workers, they like the fact that at least on the surface, Mr. Trump is trying to bring jobs back to America, so he's putting tariffs on things, and certainly very vocal about trying to encourage companies to bring jobs back to America, like the old manufacturing jobs. And how successful he's been, that's a matter of debate, but certainly he's been trying and very vocal about it. So anyway, practicality trumps morality. The second thing is that the brain of the average human is more strongly engaged by Mr. Trump than it was by Ms. Clinton. So they were monitoring the brain activity while people were watching various debates and so on. And Mr. Trump was unique in his ability to keep the brains of the people engaged. And I think it's because he has this presence. And also, you don't know what he's going to do. So I think it's kind of an entertainment factor. But anyway, regardless of what it is, the reality is that the typical American that was watching these things was more engaged. They were more focused when he was doing whatever on the screen, as opposed to one of the other people. And that basically the last sentence of this says, showmanship and simple language clearly resonated with a significant part of the population at some visceral level. Number 3, America's obsessed with entertainment and celebrities these days. So Ronald Reagan became president of the United States back in the 80s. That was a real shock that he could even do that back then. Since then, Arnold Schwarzenegger's been governor of California, and the list goes on and on and on. And there's, and in fact, this year, there was a tremendous push to try to get Oprah Winfrey to run directly, and there still is an ongoing thing. I saw Bill Maher just a week or two ago, who was basically begging on his television show for Oprah Winfrey to get in the race to oppose Mr. Trump. But anyway, yeah, we watch a lot of TV here in the United States, and of course you get familiar with people, and familiarity can breed a certain level of confidence. And so anyway, America's obsessed with entertainment and celebrities. Then another one, and I'd be interested in those of you that like Mr. Trump, when we go through these 13 things, which of these do you think kind of describe why you support Mr. Trump? I'm just curious. So number 4 is some people just want to watch the world burn. By the way, this article is on Psychology Today. And actually, let me see if I can do this. Oops, hold on. I'm going to ouch. Hang on. Bear with me, please. Bear with me. I'm going to show you this website. I'm going to hold it up here so that you can see it. Yeah. So let me just so you can read this thing. And again, I encourage you guys to read these things yourself, right? So there it is. I'll hold it steady so you can see that. Now it's a lot of typing. I apologize that with the media that we have between us, won't be able to like let you copy and paste that, but if you're very interested, and certainly if you go to psychologytoday.com, you'll be able to look at this. This is July 9th, 2019. So if you go within the next days, certainly you'll be able to look at this. Okay, so some people just want to watch the world burn. Okay, so there's a certain number of people supporting Trump that were simply rebellious, and they wanted to introduce chaos. And I knew people, as I had talked to various people, that they're like, yeah, I'm throwing a hand grenade into Washington. And they're quite delighted to do that. Number 5, the fear factor. So turns out that they've done studies on people who lean to be a little bit more conservative versus those that lean to be a little bit more liberal. And the people with that tend to be more conservative, it's also part of their brains that they have a greater sensitivity to fear. In other words, they when someone starts talking about things like in the case of Mr. Trump, he talks about all these murderers and rapists coming across the border. That causes conservative people to be more agitated, reactive, because they are, have a tendency to latch on to something like that and say, oh, I need to do something about that. Where liberals, their brains are wired a little bit different, and they have a tendency to be less reactive to those kinds of statements. Let's see here. The next one says the power of mortality, reminders, and the perceived existential threat. So there is a social psychology known as terror management theory, and Mr. Trump does fear mongering, and so this is kind of related to the previous one. The fact that you're mortal, and we as humans, kind of are very much, resistant to dying. This thing is of great importance to us. So it ends up, if you start talking about the potentially dying, so being murdered or whatever, then that also triggers some response. Okay. Number 7. So there's something called the Dunning Kruger effect, which is that humans often overestimate their expertise. So in this case, studies have shown that people who lack expertise in some areas of knowledge also have a cognitive bias. In other words, their brains also tell them that they don't have that lack of knowledge. So it's kind of like you don't recognize that you're ignorant of something. And we all are ignorant of various things. It's absolutely true. I am, you are, everyone is. None of us are all knowing, okay? Although I'm sure Mr. Trump would say that he is. But apparently the same wiring, if you will, in the brain that would have someone have a lack of expertise would also cause them to not be able to realize or recognize that they have that lack of expertise. So the example that they give is that some people cannot be reached out to because they mistakenly believe that they are the ones that should be reaching out to others. That they know something when the reality is they don't know, but they think they do. So there you go. Then there's a misguided sense of entitlement. So they call it relative deprivation. So what it is some people feel like they have a certain entitlement to certain things. And here in the United States, and in fact, a lot of places around the world, not just here in the United States, but people that look like me, white Caucasian men especially, okay, people that look like me, have, had kind of a leg up. We have. I had a relatively easy lifetime, certainly compared to many, many billions of people around the world. That is a fact. And then, if you start losing your jobs, people like me, who were kind of always given a leg up, if you will, always always allowed to have a priority on how society behaved, and then that starts going away, or the perception that it starts going away, then you get angry because you feel like something that perhaps you feel like you're entitled to is being taken from you. Another big thing with number 9, so this is interesting, that they've done studies and they've looked at people that were the support for Mr. Trump is the strongest, and it's actually in areas where there's hardly any mixing of other races. So it's truly these areas around the country that everybody looks like me, plus minus. And it says here that these racial biases, when there's been no contact with other races, the bias is its strongest against other races. And then and for example, this happens on football teams and in the military, when you are working closely with other people and the only difference between you and them is the color of their skin or whatever, you quickly realize that that bias is inappropriate. But if you've never done that, if you've never spent any time with people of color, for example, then you you have a tendency to have this bias, which is one of the reasons, unfortunately, even though like segregation and the Jim Crow laws and all that, equal, separate but equal, all that kind of stuff have been illegal for a long time, our country just like naturally segregates anyway. So people, like African Americans have a tendency to live in communities of other African Americans, and that's really unfortunate. We should be mixing just because of this issue. Number 10, conspiracy theories. So there are lots of people that believe in conspiracies of various kinds, and certainly conspiracies do exist, but their paranoia is strong, and Mr. Trump has this conspiracy paranoia kind of thing, and so they identify with him, so a certain number of people. Then Trump is a narcissist. He's not only a con man, confidence man, con artist kind of thing, which is all the same thing, but he's a narcissist, which basically is he just cares about himself. And there is some psychology around groups thinking that way as well, that you just care about yourself. You care about your own group, and to hell with anybody outside of your group. So that's number 11. Number 12 is there's a desire to dominate others. So there's a social dominance orientation. And certain people have a preference to have a society with hierarchical groups in it, and especially if they can be one of the higher groups, they prefer that. So anyway, so that's social dominance orientation is one of the things that people associate and believe in Mr. Trump, because again they kind of parallel his views and interests. And the last one on the list here, oh no, there's two more. Authoritarian personality. So some people really liked the idea of having a very authoritative person in the lead. That's just how they are. They their personalities, the way that they were wired when they were born, and the experiences that they've had, they just want a very, very strong leader, one that's unapologetic, and striving to do whatever he thinks is best, and they're very happy with that, because they don't like this, well, should we do this or not? They just want to follow. Hey, tell me where to go. I just want to follow. And then the last one is racism and bigotry. So he goes here and it says, it would be grossly unfair and absolutely inaccurate to say that every one of Trump's supporters have prejudice against ethnic and religious minorities. That would be absolutely true. And in fact, it's not even close to everyone. It's probably not even a significant majority or plurality, but there is certainly some number of his supporters that do have significant, strong, racist and bigoted viewpoints. And yeah, Mr. Trump, kind of broadcasts those very strongly himself, and therefore he has this this effect where people that are biased that way like him, because it's readily apparent that he, at least what he says publicly, often would lead many people to believe. I mean, he's people. It's a huge percentage of the people, commentators and whatnot, that talk about him say he's racist and bigoted. And there's all kinds of stuff there. But anyway, so we're out of time. It's a little bit over 20 minutes. But just look at that psychologytoday.com. And the actual article is called A Complete Psychological Analysis of Mr. Trump's Support. Okay? All right. Well, another show done. The Pro and Con Show. My name again is Michael James Ott. Thanks for watching. I'll be on again tomorrow. Please go back and look at some of the old shows. Hope you'll join me in the future ones. And until I do another show, bye for now.